комиссар.
Да, комиссар.
И приглашаем вас сегодня на советскую территорию для проведения совместной встречи.
Jeg håper det står bare bra til med helse og familie. Deres datter er blitt frisk igjen. Добрый день.
Да.
Добрый день.
Здравствуйте.
Борисоглебск.
Ну, така вечора til Борисоглебска.
Just to give you an idea where we are in the world, I just show you right up here. Then to give you a closer look at the border, I will use this map. The border follows the deepest part of the river Pasvik, all the way up to Kirkenes, except for a little enclave on the western side of the Pasvik River. That came because the Russians had a church here, a Greek Orthodox church. And the Russians never wanted to relinquish that part because it was part of Holy Russia. And of course, that went for the Russians as it goes for the Soviets. You know, and the patriotism is so great. You know the old English saying, my country, right or wrong? The Russians would be, my country, always right.
Немцев на крайнем севере город Печенга был очищен от врага. Петсамо – это древняя русская Печенга. Здесь в XVI веке при Иване Грозном на берегу Печенского залива был основан русский монастырь и возник арктический порт. В свое время в Печенском порту побывали славные русские флотоводцы Ушаков, Нахимов, Макаров. Немцы весь район никелевого производства и с боями заняли Никель, Ахмалахти и Сальми-Ярви. Продолжая наступление, наши войска перешли государственную границу Норвегии и 25 октября овладели городом Киркенес. 1 ноября
And if you talk about the north, and we are north of the American landmass, actually, we are north of Anchorage. So if we hadn't had the Gulf Stream, it wouldn't be possible to live in this area, as you know. So
how far are we from the pole?
Oh, from the pole. I wouldn't actually be quite sure how far we are from the pole, but the next, anyway, looking out to the sea, is the pole. The Russians are so religious, so they will actually accept a border marked with a church. Now we are right on the border to Russia at the Barensk Sea. You know, this is where we are very close to the forces on the Kola area. We have the Pechenga military base just about 10 kilometers away from the border, and then further on, about 20 to 30 kilometers away, we have the big Typhoon base. The Typhoon, you know, is the biggest submarines they've got, one of these with the intercontinental ballistic missiles, which they actually can shoot from here, from the Barents Sea, from the polar basin. So the Delta submarine and the Typhoon submarine has changed the strategic picture, as you know, of this area.
You are now at the northernmost observation post at the Norwegian border to Russia. And in that direction we have the Barensk Sea and the sea borderline. From this post we are keeping an eye on the sea borderline and the borderline itself, and reporting irregularities and movements by the Russians.
Corporal Hegerseit.
Where are you from in Norway?
Telemark.
Femte Kristiansen fra Sauda.
9827. Nordmøre.
Of course, if a real push comes on, we can't do that. But what we do have in this area, we have in Finnmark Norwegian forces, and the Norwegian forces will be the tripwire, so to speak, for NATO to react if the Russians would ever think of starting to operate towards a NATO country in this area.
Hotel, immediate execute Tango Alpha 1-2, tech 1, tech 2.
Lately, there has been an increase in Russian submarines here.
I think last year they had fairly close to 100 reports on submarines, but there were possibly 2 or 3 that were real. Sometimes our own submarines, a common submarine, comes into a fjord, and that is also very quickly reported.
the Barensk Sea is tremendously rich in fish. But during the last few years, of course, the oil exploration has taken over quite a lot, and of course the discussion on the sea borders out in the Barensk Sea between Norway and the Soviet Union is of extremely high importance to both countries, I would have thought. But as you know, there is a so-called grey zone along this border because we can't really agree. Yes, here you see actually the last border marker 415. It's something like 400 meters out from the river's mouth. This is the first time we can see the sun now. The first time we can see the sun, and you can see it on the mountains. It's actually the first time I see it this year because, you know, the sun is away from about mid-November till the end of January. And now just to see the sun, just to see the trees here, it makes you feel differently, you know, all that. Because I think the dark time of the year is really heavy upon people living here. It is the same landscape on the solid side as it is on the Norwegian side. Well, there's a difference. So the soldiers answered, on this side we have God's free nature. On the other side they have only nature.
Akkurat, ja. For da var det noen år det var fryktelig med snø da.
Ja.
Men dere har jo bandvogner.
Men vi forsøkte å komme.
Jeg bodde før på Jakobsen.
Og gjorde du det?
Drama, Ingrid. Rosa, Sinne.
We are going to talk, exchange things, and most of all, get to know them, become friends.
Do you feel that there has been a change since Gorbachev came into power? Glasnost, has it become...
I don't think so, because I have lived here all my life, and I've always felt that the Russians have been our neighbors and kind of close friends.
They have apparently been told from Moscow that there should be more openness, more photographing along the border. Yes, it is more or less most blatant change they have done actually here now, that we can come here to the border and film. And as you know, he also agreed that we could film him. That is unusual. That hasn't happened before. That's the first time actually that's happened, that he also was in the film. I think it is important for us to understand that the Russians do not necessarily think the same way as we do. Let me give you a little example. I was a member of a commission which had to deal with survey along the border. Then the Russian colonel came up to the Norwegian director of the Geographical Map Society and said, it's okay that I have these two maps. I have the sketch map, which is very correct in every way, but we have the old one too from the old documentation. I think it's important that the maps we make now are closer to the older documentation, because, you know, that is the map they will check in Moscow. Doesn't really matter whether the map is correct or not, as long as it's like the one they have in Moscow. You know, it's really odd. We have a country, a huge country, a superpower, really. And you can't just travel freely over this border, see the people. And they're talking about Glastnost, they're talking about friendship. But of course their way of interpreting friendship is quite different than ours, apparently. Apparently, yes, because what should they be afraid of? I mean, 290,000 people being able to send a shuttle ship out in the space, but they're not able to provide their people with ordinary jeans. Poor Gorbachev, he has a lot of problems to deal with. Their economy is really a shambles. And we in the West very seldom understand how bad it really is for an ordinary citizen within the Soviet Union. I think he would have to change the system in order to improve that economy of that really poor country when it comes to. But I mean, they still look upon the West as being decadent, being decadent.
There's no freedom.
Well, there is a freedom. They don't define freedoms the same way as we do. I think it's important to understand that perestroika, Glastnost, it will take time. As I said, there is a young generation who are restless, but on the other hand, we should not expect the big results too quickly. I think we have to look upon the Soviet Union in a long-term perspective. And I think it's important also for the West to keep their guard while we also give the help they need in order to build up their economy.
Do you ever see Soviet patrols?
Yeah, sometimes, not often. They have watchtowers along the border and they see what they want to see from them.
Is there anything that you have noticed in the last few months that really has changed here along the border?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Do you think that Glastnost has come up here?
Yeah, I think it's always been here. The Glastnost is for the top people. The people on the border have always had Glastnost.
here we have the two border poles. This is the actual border between Russia and Norway.